um, did you forgive your father? And give an example of how you knew when you had truly forgiven him, if you forgave him.
Well, yes, I did forgive him. Short answer. I actually forgave him before I forgave my mother. And I think that as a child, every time he abused me, I forgave him, which I think is what children do. We forgive our parents. A lot of times, even if it's just for something we think is unfair. But every time, every night he came into my bedroom, every time he hit me, every time he beat me, I forgave him. It was a part of my coping process. I couldn't walk around angry because that would have just added to the misery that I was already feeling from his actions. So taking that perspective and bringing it now in the present, now that I'm trying to establish a life for myself and my children, I did continue to forgive him. And I think one of the important things that we have to talk about when we talk about forgiveness, it's not something that you just do one time. You have to keep forgiving. Sometimes you may even backslide and think of something, especially with survivors, you know, something may trigger a memory that you get
Right.
yourself upset all over again, and you have
Right.
to then forgive that person for that.
Right.
So, I think the moment when I just knew that I it was put to rest, so to speak, where I knew that I did not have to continue to work to forgive him. What did they say? Jesus Christ said you have to forgive your brother 70 times 77. Is that how the parable goes?
Mhm.
When he was sentenced, and when we was at the sentencing, after my portion of the case had completed, and even he was still denying that he had done anything wrong. I just looked at him and I think I felt so sorry for him on top of everything. And I knew at that point, once I told him how his actions affected me and my children, then I believe that was like my most final time that I felt closure as far as that is concerned, as far as the abuse he put me through.
Right.
So, you know, but again, who knows? Maybe a year later and I discover something else and then I have to forgive him all over again. But I have to say it's definitely is necessary for my healing to forgive him.
Okay. Let me go to one of these questions. Somebody had asked a really good point in a
Mhm.
question, so I'm going to go to that. The question is, how does it affect your children?
Um, in different ways. And, you know, so one day I have to do a video with them answering some of these questions because, like my son from my father, he's 20 years old now. And I'm sure you can only imagine how for a black man in America, to know that your father, first of all, you and your mother share the same father, so technically you're siblings, but also not having a limited identity because, you know, his father is my father. We don't have any connection with our grandparents on my father's side, aunts, uncles. So I think identity wise, he kind of looks for acceptance from my mother's side of the family, and definitely my brothers. I have brothers who are the same age of him as him. He is an amazing young man. I mean, my son is brilliant. He is artistic. He's a dancer. He's an awesome performer. He loves attention. All the girls love him. But and he's very supportive of what I do. All my children are supportive of me speaking out, and they're aware of sometimes he says, "Mommy, that's TMI." He's like, "Okay, mommy, okay, stop." But you know, we have open communication. So they are, I guess you can say, a lot of people do assume that children born of incest have some form of, whether it be deformities or health issues. Two of my children do not have any health issues. And then I have two children that do have health issues. But as far as like their mental state, we go through the same things that I think any other family would go through. They have been through their, rebellious teenager stages like anyone else. So I hear. I didn't have that stage, but so I hear. So I mean, they're just an amazing group, and we have a very special relationship.
That's awesome. I've met them and I love all of them. All of
Yeah.
them are very unique because they have some awesome personalities,
Thank
especially
you.
the youngest one too. He is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
my next question for you is, um, what did you do to heal? What tools did you use and what did you do to start your healing process?
Wow, what didn't I use? Well, I think because I was in my situation for so long, I obviously had to employ quite a few coping mechanisms while I was being abused. One of those was, of course, my love and relationship with my Creator, with God. Just trusting in, you know, that God does not put you to anything that he won't bring you through. He, she. I prefer, both sexes, male and female. Um, but meditation is a huge part of my life, even if it's just short spurts. I was on more of an astringent schedule, like literally every day for an hour at the exact same time. But life gets in the way. But anytime I can just take a moment to center myself, and I say when you pray, praying is when you're talking to God. Meditation is when you're listening to God. And I feel like just the effects that it has on your body, it also has the positive effects on your mind. So I do employ that. Reading is another major part, just trying to, I'm a sponge for knowledge, but then writing, putting my feelings out onto the paper or in the computer, of course, nowadays, or in my phone. My thoughts and feelings, I'm always putting it down so then I could read them, reflect on them, and I believe that it helps with strengthening my relationship with myself. And I think that that is definitely important to the healing process, because a lot of times survivors, and I can't even say a lot of times, all the time, we blame ourselves for what happened, right? If we are the victim or the recipient of someone's negative attention, then you tend to hold yourself responsible. So in doing that, there tends to be, or there's a possibility of there developing kind of like a love-hate relationship with yourself. Whether you don't like yourself, you don't feel that you are beautiful, you feel that you don't have a sense of worth. So it's important to really build a strong relationship with yourself. And that's really what I focus on a lot. And it has contributed a lot to my healing.
Right. Someone said, love that analogy about prayer and meditation. They said you are such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Pray with our feet. Um, my Another question I wanted to ask was, how did you go about turning your pain into purpose? And I'm talking about like even from the very beginning,
Mhm.
when you started your process, your journey on that. What was that like for you?
Honestly, it happened when I was a child. I had siblings, right? I'm the oldest of 9 by my mother and 21 by my father. We think it's 21. So just being responsible for my siblings, as the eldest child, which I'm sure a lot of children, eldest children are, but then my parents put that responsibility on me, in two ways. One, my mom was with my father a lot, so she would leave me home with my siblings. I had to homeschool them. I cooked for them. I clothed them. I did their hair. And then what my father did by the time I was about 11 years old, he would tell me, in order to protect my siblings, then I had to do more heinous acts with him. So that kind of gave me, I feel that that gave me a purpose. And I remember what my mind frame was as a child, and I know it's the same feelings that I have now, as far as being able to take something negative and turning it into a positive. So my siblings was a huge inspiration on that, because I felt so responsible for them. Um, just me as a spirit, yes, I felt responsible for them. That's my nature. But my father did put that responsibility on me. He says to me, well, if you don't want me to go and abuse or molest your sister, then you have to do thus, and so. You have to make sure that I'm sexually satisfied every day at such and such a time. Like, he would just add all of these um, tasks that I had to fulfill sexually in order for him to not abuse my sisters. And because I loved them so much, one time he even pit us against each other and had me choose to either take my sister into the room or for him to take me into the room. So that, I think, um, is a contributing factor to just being able to use a negative situation to do something good. I mean, it's a very messed up situation to have to do this in, but I was doing something good at the sacrifice of my own safety from a very young age. So I think I'm conditioned to a certain degree, but that's honestly where it started. And then when I started having children, they became my purpose, so to speak. And then when I got away from my father, I knew that I had to be out there, learning a world that I knew nothing about, establishing myself for my family, and then building relationships with people. And as I was writing my book, and I went to school for the first time, I shared my story in a public speaking class, and this young woman was crying throughout my entire presentation. And she came up to me and she thanked me so much. She was a Latino woman, and she was the most quiet person in the class. Like, she would not get up and speak at all, even though it's a public speaking class. And for the first time, like, I think we were in class maybe like 6 weeks already, and she hadn't spoken to anybody. She came up to me and she thanked me for being a voice for her, and how much that had just helped her, and she could not contain her emotion. And I think that's when it really hit me how, my voice, as someone who had been through a horrific situation, could really be used as a voice for others. And then that's like when I started doing the speaking professionally.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
awesome. You are so incredible. And I thank you so much